Hey everyone, we're back. Dave Ramanick here from Prophecy with Matt Bijan. We've had a variety of topics that we've talked about. Today we decided we're going to talk about networking and relationships, very near and dear to both of us. And one of the reasons that Matt's joined us recently is a long-term relationship we've had and a bunch of networking that we've done together that have kind of led us here. So a really important one and something that we're both very deeply committed to. So Matt, any opening thoughts as we kind of jump into this one?
Listen, networking is something that I love to do. I recruited for a bunch of years, and it fuels me making those connections and getting together with people, hearing their stories. Whether when I was recruiting, it sort of generated things as part of business, but even since I've been not recruiting full time, it's still something that fuels me, and I love to do it and make those connections. It's so important and fulfilling.
Yeah, I agree that the fulfilling part's huge. And one of the key things for me is it's just one of those kind of being a good person type of things. There's an individual from past colleague that kind of reached out and just was kind of looking around and just without any thought immediately opened up my network, made a phone call or two, followed up on a few things, and really for no other reason than just a good person, someone I respected, someone who I think is really super smart and would be a huge add to anyone that could use their help. And as that was occurring, Matt and I both started reading this book. So I'm going to flash it up here for a second. It's called Kind Folks Finish First by Sam Jacobs. And, as I'm, trying to help this individual, then all of a sudden I read in this book about, hey, you should help other people because it feels good. It's a good thing to do, and never keep a scorecard. And that's something that I've always kind of kept near and dear. And, I guess ultimately it kind of pays you back with good karma, but I don't really think about it that way. For me, it's always been about, hey, there's been times in my career and in my life where I probably could have used some help. And I was always amazed at how welcoming and open people were. And I've always taken that with me. I've done some mentoring things with my alma mater and just stuff like that because I think it's just a good thing to do. So it was really nice to kind of read that and see that as sort of validating. And Sam Jacobs actually built a business out of it. So just a cool thing. Matt, what were your kind of takeaways from that book? I think it's probably something similar.
Well, yeah, when I was reading it, like you see yourself in it, like and so often, through Sam telling his story, but and just in my experience from recruiting, I get referrals all the time, people that knew me as a recruiter, and so they would send people my way, even though I'm not necessarily in a position to help them immediately. But you end up making this connection, right? You find yourself making this connection with someone that you may be able to help but may not. But I also and I think Sam's built a business around this a little bit, but for me personally, it's like I get curious. Like, oh, I had coffee with this person a month ago and they said this and this. And I'm curious about how did that work out? Like what happened, right? Like did they end up taking that job? Did they get that interview? Did they, did my contact reach out that I expected them to reach out? And so you find yourself naturally like feeding it. And all of a sudden you have yourself a relationship because you did something that was I did something that was sort of simple or easy, but it ends up kind of feeding that relationship. Now you're not doing that every time because you talk to a lot of people, but the ones where you make those connections, it's very meaningful, and they start reaching out to you, and it's sort of the flywheel gets spinning and those relationships blossom.
Yeah, and I've always kind of had this motto that interesting people like meeting other interesting people, and I think there's never anything bad that comes out of that. And I think even if you're in different industries or there's no immediate connection to your point, like there's always something good that comes out of it. And interesting people also know other interesting people. And even in like starting this business up, I definitely leaned heavy on my network for recommendations for different services that we need or different things that we should look at, or how do you do this, how do you do that, and by building up a good network of folks that you trust and maybe that have been down this path or maybe not, just need a different perspective. I've leaned heavily on some people that I really respect and trust that have offered some really good counsel that has definitely been helpful, even if it's just someone to vent to or to run an idea by or whatever. It's been hugely helpful. So I think that's something that's great. And I
Dave,
also think
sorry, just
go
to
ahead.
add, what was the pool like? Was the pool, are these like former colleagues that you were reaching out to? Are these like former classmates? Are these former neighbors? Like where did the pool live for you for your network when you were reaching out to folks and sort of bouncing ideas off of them when you were starting the business?
I mean, some of them are actually people I met through networking, like a friend of a friend of a friend who ended up becoming like in my inner circle. Some of them you've met, just people that I trust, that people that we've gone back and forth with on. They've asked me about things, and just objective. Sometimes you just need someone that'll tell you the truth objectively, that maybe doesn't know a lot about your business, but is really wise as a business person, and they can say, "Hey, here's some things you want to think about, or here's some ways that you can stress test if you're looking at this properly, or different ways to kind of look forward, or things to be aware of." Some folks had nothing to do with what we're doing, but understood how to run a good business. So that was a lot of what I looked at. Alex and I, it's really important for us to get inspiration outside of auto, and we're starting to look at things that we can do that are
Right.
auto tertiary, or maybe even not auto at all, because we want to keep growing, we want to keep stretching, and we're pretty curious learners, so we want to do things that are going to keep us growing in an interesting way. So you got to talk to people from all over the place, and inspiration can come from anywhere. So we never want to be closed off to who we talk to. I don't want it to be so incestuous that it's auto only. I think we'll miss opportunity if we do that, and that's where a
Yeah.
network really comes in handy.
Well, and you start putting yourself out there in regards to the people that you want to talk to, like, hey, I'm interested in this, or I'm interested in that, and people will generate like, oh, and sometimes when I've networked, it gives me they might not be able to make a warm introduction, but it gives me an idea where I need to spend time because I don't mind cold calling either. And so, like, if you start cold calling and you start, hey, so and so thought you'd be an interesting match for what we're trying to do, it might take you longer, but the connection is more meaningful. And I think when you can get into those conversations, eventually it'll yield fruit because the connection's real. Like that, there's a reason why that person recommended the match. Um, the other thing I was going to share when I was asking that question about the pools that you network in, sometimes you don't know, like if it's a classmate, for an example, like there might be a classmate that I enjoyed, whatever, when I was in high school, but you don't necessarily keep in touch because your families or your lives take different paths. But when there's like with this business with prophecy, there's been opportunities for me to reconnect with people like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen that guy in years. I enjoy his company, but we never talk because we either live in different communities, our lives have taken different paths, but it's someone that I, trust, I know, I like, but we just don't, we don't keep in touch. And, but boy, when you have that opportunity to connect based on business or something else, right? It might be personal because I know what they're interested in and now I've become interested in it. It's such a joy to reconnect with some of those, faces from the past. And it can be a challenge at times when you're, you don't have that platform, but that's the difficulty. That's what you have to sort of endure to, kind of stay fresh when maybe there's not a lot of relevance. But when you make that connection, you find that common ground. It's a tremendous amount of fun.
Yeah, and I think you just have to be open to exploring things that may not bear fruit right away, or maybe helping someone else a little bit more than it's helping you, or whatever. I mean, I went to an event with my wife, and it was for something she was involved in, and I met a guy who was an attorney that really had nothing to do with what we do. Happened to have a friend that was in our space that I got introduced to, and who's turned out to be, a good person to know, and we knew a lot of the same people, and it's just totally random, but that's the way it rolls. You kind of fall into these things, and the next thing you know, you're potentially getting business out of it.
I
So
mean,
you just got to be
Alex's
open to that kind of thing.
Alex's contact they were both wearing Jordans at the birthday party, a little kid's birthday party. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just like a happenstance thing, and now they're a
Yep.
client of ours.
Well, anyone who's going to be wearing Jordans is going to be someone I'm probably going to talk to, but that
I'm gonna get my first pair.
beside the point.
I'm
Yeah,
in the market, everybody.
yeah. But that's the thing. It's just being open, being curious to hear what people do, and like I never start a conversation asking someone what they do for a living, but a lot of times it kind of falls into that, and I certainly love talking about what we do, and it comes up a lot, and it opens up a lot of doors in terms of who people know, and a lot of people are interested to hear about what we're doing, so it's always fun to talk about it.
Yeah, the thing it makes me think about too is when you do have an opportunity to meet somebody doing something you love, right? Like if you, Dave, you love Jordans, and so like if you're going to go to a sneaker show or you're going to go to some sort of event where that's the focus, and then you bump into somebody and you find that there's some commonality in regards to business. That's how much there's so much joy. Like I mean, obviously I got these elk horns over my head and I like to shoot and hunt and stuff like that. So if you bump into somebody out like at the range or whatever, and then you find out that there's some common interests, it's so much more. There's like this immediate affinity for each other because you have common interests, even though it has nothing to do with business, but there's like a trust bond that's established early. And so I think it's also important in networking just to do the stuff that you love, right? Get out there and do the things that you enjoy doing, and be in groups where people are doing those things. And you'll find that, there's business opportunity there too. And they're looking for it just as much as you are.
Yeah. So I would say the last thing I'll probably end on and leave everyone with is, some of the best advice I got very, very early in my career was, always maintain your reputation. Don't burn any bridges because you just never know, where that'll lead you. And I think if you have a good reputation when you start networking and when, people introduce you or if they're willing to introduce you, if you have a good reputation, that'll take you a long way. And people are always willing to help someone that comes on a warm introduction from someone they trust. So if you have that good reputation, people won't mind recommending you. And I think that can open up all kinds of doors. Certainly if someone comes to me from someone I trust, I got no problem opening my door. So
Amen, Dave. And that,
any final
and
thoughts from you, Matt?
just to piggyback on that thought, to anybody that's maybe earlier in their career, maintaining that reputation and being and doing the right thing can sometimes be detrimental to you personally in the moment, because it's the right thing to do, but it doesn't necessarily advance you short term, but it pays off long term because you've kept yourself, you've kept your integrity, you've kept what makes you you. But it can be painful at times, and it's important to do though.
Yep. Great thoughts. Well, this is one in a series of different conversations we'll be having. Our business is growing fast. There's a lot of cool things that are coming our way. So Matt and I will be back relatively soon here to talk about some other interesting things. Please leave any comments you have. Reach out to either one of us if you want to chat, if you want to network. I'm sure we'd be open to talking to you. So hope
100%.
everyone has a great week. Thanks again.
Yep.